You are now listening to the fastest show on iSports Radio. My name is Darryl Kinsey Jr. Welcoming you to another lap of the extra mile for today, August the 8th, 2024, and the playoff push is on in NASCAR. Formula One's got itself some serious legal issues, and one IndyCar driver will not be seeing the end of the 2024 season behind the wheel. Now, let me talk about that and a whole lot more. My co-host for this evening, Jenn B. Say hi.
Hello.
Thank you all so much for joining us, whether you're on YouTube, Instagram, or Twitter, or if you're listening on the re-air on Spreaker and everywhere you can hear your podcast. Make sure to follow us on X, IG, Facebook, TikTok, at IE Sports Radio. And of course, the podcasts are available everywhere where you can hear podcasts. Make sure you check it out if you miss any episode live. Make sure to check us out on iSportsRadio.com/The Extra Mile. And don't forget to also follow our Twitter at Extra Mile IESR. I'm at DK Jr. 12. Jenn B is at Believe Land Girl. Chris is at Fiji Sims, though we don't have him this weekend. And Michael Ward at Michael_Ward25. And of course, a thanks to our sponsors, Planet Jerky, premium brisket beef jerky, the jerky that's on a whole nother planet. Follow them on IG at Planet Jerky and order here from planetjerky.net. And of course, Seal the Deal, Wax Seals. IG, follow them on Instagram at Seal the Deal, Wax Seals. And order from iSportsRadio.com/Seal the Deal, Wax Seals. And before we get going, we're going to hear a couple of words from our sponsors. So sit tight and we'll start the show in just a little bit.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at SealTheDeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
And we're back here in the Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Darryl and Jenn B here with you this evening. And Jenn, the racing season is finally ready to get started back up again. We've got NASCAR this weekend in Richmond as long as Tropical Storm Debbie decides to play nice, which for all the NASCAR fans out there that are concerned, it is supposed to be out of here by tomorrow morning. So we should get both races in. Not fun for us tonight though, because we're actually under a tornado watch until 7 tomorrow morning. So yay, tornadoes in the middle of the night, my favorite. But It's been a fun Olympic break. I have been well engrossed into the Paris Olympics. I'm sad to see them go, but that means racing is back.
Yes.
So we start, of course, with NASCAR, the first one back on track. They will be in Richmond this weekend as the run to the playoffs begins in earnest. And Jen, this is always the time of the season where the tempers always seem a little bit shorter.
Yes.
As everyone is trying to get those last desperate points to make the playoffs.
It's time for the gloves to come off, or the helmets, as the case may be.
Yep. Hopefully we'll see some stuff get thrown this weekend. Let's go ahead and take a look at the playoff grid as we pull into Richmond this weekend. The guys at the top of this list, down to Austin Cindric, they are all automatically in. Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, fighting for that regular season championship, which gives you the 16 extra bonus points, which we have seen win drivers championships on occasion. So our interesting meter, are where we're going to be watching the state of play for the rest of the week, for the rest of the season, is this 13th to 20th range down here from about Martin Truex Jr. to, and I'm surprised to say this, Todd Gilliland. And Jen, I want to start with Todd Gilliland. He is going to become the number one driver at Front Row Motorsports next year. He has had one heck of a season.
That he has. He's been impressive. If he keeps it up, he may get right into that playoff race.
Yeah, I mean, he's close. I don't think he's going to get in. He would have to win to get in at this point, and I just do not see a Todd Gilliland win on the cards, except for maybe Daytona, which Daytona, Katie bar the door, because everybody's got a chance there, unless you're BJ McLeod. But for Todd Gilliland, gets over with that, comes back to Front Row Motorsports, did not run a full season with that team last year, ran a full season now, has benefited immensely from the upgrade in relationship they have with Penske, and he's been up there, scored a couple of top tens this year. He may not make the playoffs, but he might be one of those guys that plays spoiler and keeps a guy like a Chris Buescher, or Ross Chastain, or a Bubba Wallace from getting in on points.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah. He has. I thought he was coming close to winning that last race there for a little while. Mm-hmm. Then Kyle Larson just came in and took over.
Yeah, Larson's going to do Larson things. That was back at Indy when Larson had the fuel advantage, and he did not let that slide. But as we look at the bottom of this, Kyle Busch, 112 points back. If you had told me when we opened the show at the start of the year that Kyle Busch would be 19th, 112 points out of the playoffs, coming into the last 5 races of the season, I would have called you a liar.
Right.
But here we are. And it's because Kyle has had the worst luck known to man this season.
It has not been a good season for him at all. Anything that can go wrong has.
Yeah. And perfect example last week at Indy, or not last week, sorry, a couple of weeks ago at Indianapolis. He was on his way to a top 10 and I think Denny Hamlin just got loose under him. Yep. And into the wall he goes. And that's the end of his race. And that has been Kyle Busch's entire season this year. And Larry B joins us on Twitter, says, hey, y'all. Hey, Larry and Taryn Rodriguez via YouTube. Good evening, Darryl and crew. Let's wave the green flag and ride. Stay safe, you two. We are staying safe. Thankfully, we do not have any storm-related things going on right now. But things could change, unfortunately, when it comes to the storms. So we'll keep going through our conversation of the playoffs. Chase Briscoe has a job for next year. So playing out the string right now with a Stewart-Haas Racing organization that I don't know how motivated they're going to be to finish this season as a unit, because a lot of those guys are looking for their next jobs for 2025, which this is around the time when folks would start looking for those, and not just the drivers. There's a lot of shop people that need new jobs. There's administrators that are looking to hook up with new teams. So I don't know how married they're going to be making this playoff push when 3/4 of the organization is looking for a job.
Right. Yeah, that doesn't give you a whole lot of incentive.
Absolutely not. And then we get to 16th and 17th, and we'll take these two as a unit. Ross Chastain and Bubba Wallace. Before we got here, Ross Chastain was 57 points up. It looked impossible that Bubba Wallace would point his way into the playoffs. And Ross has had a horrible couple of races at Pocono and Indy. On the other hand, Bubba Wallace, a couple of top 10, some strong runs at Indy and Pocono. And now here he is going into Richmond, another track that recently has been good to him. Only 7 points out of a playoff spot. Bubba Wallace could be in the playoffs by the time Sunday's race ends. And I didn't think we would be saying that a couple of weeks ago.
No, his season did not start off well, but
No.
he has turned it around. So, I mean, more power to him if he can get there.
Yeah. Ross Chastain on the other side, he has been a part of what has been a weird year for Trackhouse, because they went Atlanta with Daniel Suarez. It looks like things are going to go well. Chastain hadn't won a race yet, but he was running in the top 10, and that team is just fallen back to earth. That's really the best way I can put it. It's been a struggle for them to put the consistency together. Thankfully, Daniel Suarez is in the playoffs, but Suarez is really looking at, when we get there, being one of the first 4 drivers out, because outside of the win in Atlanta, as far as the Cup Series is concerned, not a lot going on for him.
Right. Yeah. It's going to be interesting. For sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, however, off the track, he's had a lot of excitement, became an American citizen, got married during the playoff break, and won a NASCAR Brazil Series race. So
nice.
Became the first driver to win in 3 different NASCAR International Series in one season. So he's got that going for him, at least.
Always a positive to have that going for you. I mean, that shows that he's got the drive. So if he can't pull it off this season, there's come back stronger next season.
Well, it also shows that he's got some talent.
Yes, for sure.
For whatever reason, with Trackhouse, it's not gelling right now. But outside of that, he's actually showing some speed, which is nice to see. As you look at the order, we've got Chris Buescher and Ty Gibbs. They are safe-ish. They are not Daytona safe, as I say, because we do have that race, even though it's not at the end of the playoffs. I mean, at the end of the regular season, sorry. It is going to be a huge factor into who does and does not get in. And right now, Ty Gibbs, 42 up, Chris Buescher, 17 up. They are not feeling that great down the home stretch. They've got to make something happen in these next few races. The best thing for them would be to sneak a win here, lock in, and not have to worry about those points.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what probably all of those lower guys right there are looking for. Steal a win and lock your spot.
Yep. So here are the races left in the regular season as we are fast approaching the playoffs in the Cup Series. We have Richmond, the Cookout 400 on Sunday. That'll be a night race. Then the Firekeepers Casino 400 in Michigan. The Coke Zero 400 actually on a Saturday night for a night race. Oh, my God. I didn't even think we were legally allowed to have those anymore. And then we'll end the year with the Cookout Southern 500 at Darlington. Darlington is going to be difficult.
Yeah.
If you are racing there trying to win a playoff spot. Excuse me. That is not the place. There's only one other place I would not want to go to have to win my way into the playoffs, and that's the race before on August 24th. So, two difficult races. Darlington Raceway, they'll be racing hover cars, and we'll still be there, and that track will still be difficult. And then Daytona, Coke Zero Sugar 400, super speedway races. They need no introduction on how difficult they can be. They've kind of turned into a little bit of a lottery, but everybody's close. Everybody's got a chance, and one mistake will clean out 10 to 15 guys, which means easiest places to get it done, Jen, this week in Richmond, next week in Michigan. These would be the two places I try to get it.
I actually went to a race in Michigan when I was a kid. I had no idea what was going on. My godparents lived in Detroit, and we went up to visit them, and they took us, and my parents never followed racing at all, so they didn't know anything about it either, and they took us, and it was the strangest experience as a kid not knowing what was going on. But now looking back, I'm like, wow, I actually went to a race.
Yeah, Michigan is one of those tracks I do want to get to. It's very fast, very wide sweeping corners. A lot of fun to see them there. Bubba Wallace nearly got a win there a few years ago. He's always been strong there. That's actually where he got the win that revived his career, because if he doesn't win there, he probably does not get the ride with Richard Petty Motorsports, and the rest is history. So if you're 23-11, you're a little bit excited about the next two races, but also going in is going to be a tough fight for that regular season title that is also on the line as we go over to back to the point standings, and all this on NASCAR.com. Larson is actually 10 points ahead of Chase Elliott as the first four, only separated by 43 points. So this battle for the number one seed is not over. And at times, minus Chase Elliott, who's just been Mr. Consistency, Larson, Reddick, Hamlin, they've taken turns up top of being the dominant factors in the season.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. They have been trading back and forth like crazy all season, so we'll see if Kyle Larson can hold on.
Yeah, and the 4 wins are really helping Larson, because remember, he did not get to run Charlotte due to the rain out while he was sitting there. So he now still has the points lead only by 10 points, would probably be a little bit bigger. Actually, it wouldn't be bigger even if he had run that race, because he wouldn't have got the points. So he only has the 21 starts, though. So if he does win the championship, prepare to hear a lot of nonsense. That's all I'm going to say. But looking at the playoff picture, Jen, you think anybody outside, at least in the real zone of realism, think has a chance to get in?
I think Bubba Wallace is the only one with a real shot, unless somebody can win a race down there.
I mean, Kyle Busch is capable of winning races.
He absolutely is
going to win one.
He just hasn't had that luck this season, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's really weird with that team, and I don't know what's going on over there. There's been a lot of it's another one of those teams, much like Red Bull in Formula One, where they've got a lot of conversation outside of the track with them and how they deal with issues. We've heard about the Xfinity Series issues over there with basically it's Austin Hill and nobody else. So, which is a whole nother story, but RCR, they've got to get their house in order if they're going to succeed. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue the NASCAR discussion, as the teams will have some options for tires this weekend. And NASCAR, the teams still bickering about this charter. Can they get anything done? We'll talk about that on the other side of this break. Here on the Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, sports fans? You're listening to IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your favorite West Coast Wisconsinite, Bernie Bango, and if you're a cheesehead, come listen to my show, Big Cheese Sports, where we road trip around America's Dairyland, previewing, reviewing, predicting, debating, and digging into all that is Wisconsin sports at the college and pro levels. Join me on IE Sports Radio, Sundays at 1 p.m. Central Standard. Bernie out.
Welcome to the 305, aka the Magic City, and this is Magic City Scoreboard. I'm your host, JB, and right here we're going to talk anything Miami. Miami Dolphins, Miami Heat, Miami Hurricanes, Marlins, Panthers, Inter Miami, and even high school football. So join me once a week right here on Magic City Scoreboard on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed to all that is sports.
And we're back here on the Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Darryl and Jenn here with you this evening as NASCAR is getting ready to run in Richmond. But the conversations off the track between the teams and the sanctioning body still revolve around the charter discussion on whether or not the charters will remain mandatory. Will remain permanently. NASCAR and the teams have been in what we will charitably call negotiations for the entire year, but it seems like those negotiations have been NASCAR provides a deal that is not that great. The teams reject it. And then Jenn, NASCAR just comes back with an even worse deal.
Oh, that sounds like racing. Seems to be the theme.
It's where we are right now. And NASCAR is supposed to be having a Netflix show that's supposed to be starting this year. But with all the conversations around charter, the teams are mulling actually, for lack of a better term, boycotting the show to get NASCAR to come to the table on this charter discussion. And for those that haven't been following it, the gist of the matter is right now in the Cup Series, the teams have these documents that basically guarantees them increased revenue and guaranteed starting spots in all 36 races. There are 36 charters and 4 open slots. The disparity between charter and open slot pay is so great that most of the open teams outside of a few races don't even bother, which is a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. The issue, though, is that these pieces of paper become temporary, and they've gone for a lot of money. For example, when Live Fast sold their charter, they got $40 million for selling that piece of paper. The issue at hand is that these charters are temporary, and for the teams that have not been able to make money on them, they're basically like a lot of crypto owners holding the bag, basically, if these charters do end up going away, which means all of this guaranteed system of guaranteed increased revenue and starting spots that they paid a whole lot of money to be in just goes away. And the teams would like this to be mandatory. However, NASCAR does not want the charters to be mandatory because they don't know what the landscape of the TV deals are going to be past what they've already signed. And NASCAR's fear is if at some point those deals go down. Sorry, I'm trying to get us on the floor. The ADHD fidget is fidgeting right now. But anyway, if NASCAR has a situation where the TV deals take a drastic cut, they're going to see less revenue with these charters. And NASCAR makes a lot of money off of entrance fees that they are intentionally kneecapping themselves on at this point to allow the teams to have these charters. And that's before we go into the conversations about the teams wanting more revenue and NASCAR not wanting to give up that TV revenue. Instead, NASCAR taking a decision of cutting costs, which is starting to degrade the product, and all sorts of jazzy goodness that has created a nightmare scenario. Jen, as I've laid all that out, it's getting to the point where it feels like these charters are more trouble than they're worth.
Yeah, it definitely sounds that way. It doesn't sound like it's beneficial in any way if they keep it up. It's going to end up destroying the product completely.
Well, it's gotten to the point that the charter deal runs out this year, and they still don't have a deal. No one knows what that means, to be honest. Are the teams going to race without charters next year? Are they going to boycott races until they get them? Denny Hamlin's already said, because of how razor thin their margins are, if they lose the charters, that team will miss races. He has already said they will sit home because the current health of the sport is unsustainable. Now, that's a story Denny is telling us. We don't see the checkbook. Right. So whether or not that is a bluff or reality, we just don't know. But you could be sitting we are looking at a situation and staring down the barrel of a situation where we could start the Daytona 500 and one or multiple of NASCAR's top teams may not be there because of the discussion related to these charters. The teams want them to be permanent for a reason. They've paid a bunch of money into these things to keep them. Right. Then they're suddenly going to be worthless and they're going to be just out that money that they could have spent for other things. That's not going to go over well.
No, definitely not. Oh, sounds like they're between a rock and a hard place. And somebody's going to have to budge.
Well, if they don't budge, they're all going to go over this cliff. The problem is it's a family-run business with NASCAR. The current head of that business is on the older side. I'm trying to be nice here. He's probably not thinking 5, 10, 15 years down the road because, to be honest, Jim France may not be here next year.
Right.
So he's probably more short sight, near-term focused rather than far sight focused. On the other hand, you've got a lot of these teams that would like to be in NASCAR 10, 15 years from now, but they're getting hamstrung with sponsorship money that is just not there compared to where we were during the boom period of the late 90s through mid 2000s, right before the 2008 market crash. And they need a higher alternate revenue source, which is this TV money, which, look, NASCAR might have the TV deal, but that deal wouldn't be that big if we're watching Venturini Motorsports and JD Motorsports go around the track. Like,
right.
To steal a line from the Temptations, nobody's coming to see you, Otis.
Exactly.
They're coming to see, the fans want to see the top teams and the best drivers.
Right.
Yet NASCAR thinks that, to steal another phrase from a controversial but shouldn't have been controversial podcast, NASCAR is saying we're the prize, and the teams are like, hold on, you wouldn't have been what you are without us. That feels like the main sticking point here.
Yeah, I mean, if people wanted to go watch amateur drivers, they would.
Yeah.
They wouldn't pay to see the professional drivers, but they do. So, and that's what they want to, that's what the fans want to see. So if you're going to handicap those teams so that they can't put their drivers on the track, all you're doing is hurting the brand itself.
And NASCAR's done a lot of that, unfortunately. I don't know where we want to start there, but there's a lot of dramatics with this, a lot of gamesmanship going on. And as a fan, just get a deal done. I wasn't a fan of charters, but at this point, whatever you have to do to make sure that the teams that we want to see are still going to be out there on the track on Sunday. I think that's what we want. I do not want this to turn into a Formula One level he said, she said spat that somehow ends up in the courts, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But something's got to get done, and everybody's got to stop. Well, one, NASCAR's got to stop hoarding the money.
Yeah.
They've got to stop sitting on the Dragons' hoard of gold. And the teams have to be flexible and understand that the media landscape is changing. The cord cutting is continuing exponentially.
Yes.
You're going to need a bigger streaming platform and a bigger streaming presence year after year after year, but there's no guarantee that money is going to stay because, again, they're pricing that out like cable.
Yeah.
And eventually, and people are already starting to get tired because they don't want to buy 15 different streaming services. I know I don't.
Right.
So we've got to find a place in the middle that this is going to work.
Yeah. They need to put all sports on one streaming service.
Thank you.
So then people that want to watch sports just have to buy that one and then whatever else they want for entertainment. But then people that don't want sports don't have to buy that one.
Well, I know ESPN is going to be a part of like a joint one with HBO Max.
Okay.
That's supposed to be big, but that's like $40 a month. I am not.
Wow.
That's going to have to, they're going to have a yearly subscription for that, or I am canceling when that comes out because I have an ESPN Plus. I'm not paying $40 a month for a streaming service. You've lost your mind. I will pay that yearly or I just won't do it.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's bad enough that most of them are 25 now.
That's ridiculous. I mean, I'm just glad I get Disney Plus through my Verizon subscription, but this is the landscape that NASCAR finds itself in, and they are the number one motorsport in the United States, and unfortunately, they're going the same way as IndyCar. The money's getting in the way.
Yeah.
Hopefully, they don't make the same mistake as IndyCar. The teams, to that point, have said they do not want to start a breakaway series. I hope it doesn't get to that point where they have to start a breakaway series because that would be the end of the sport.
Yeah.
IndyCar at one point was where NASCAR is now, and then the split happens. And now, other than the Indy 500, the sport is completely irrelevant. I don't want to see that, but they've got to come together when it comes to the money.
Yep.
It's sad that it always comes down to that, isn't it?
It is. It is. Seems like it happens every year. It happens in a different sport.
Yeah.
You can't come to an agreement.
Yeah, I mean, Larry B and the folks on 3 and Out College Edition have probably, they could tell you, just look at what that's done to college sports. I mean, I could go on that show and do a 20-minute rant on how the conferences suck now. Why is Cal in the ACC? Where does the Atlantic Ocean touch California? Show me on a map.
It does not.
Yeah. So let's go from complaining about money to complaining about money, as Formula One has found itself in some major trouble after they basically told Andretti to kick rocks on getting into the sport on 2026, which is a problem because the FIA said that Andretti could come in 2026. And it got to the point where now the United States federal government is involved, and the Sherman antitrust law is about to be unleashed upon Formula One, as of all people, Ohio Republican Jim Jordan has called on opening an antitrust case into Formula One's handling of Andretti coming into the sport, and the Department of Justice has now officially opened that investigation into Formula One on whether or not they have engaged in anti-competitive behavior by keeping Andretti out of Formula One as its 11th team. Now, Jen, I'll catch you up here really quickly as far as how much evidence is going to be out there. The Formula One teams before this have pretty much openly said they do not want to share the money with Andretti. That's pretty much an open and shut case when it comes to antitrust.
Yeah, they're not going to have much of a leg to stand on.
And for any international viewers that might be watching us live or listening on the re-air, the Sherman antitrust law is a very insidious piece of legislation. Formula One could be forced to be sold by Liberty Entertainment that actually owns the sport right now. They could be forced to sell. The government could order Formula One to cease operations until Andretti is placed is allowed to place on the grid. They could cease their operations in the United States, or they could break the entity up. And Formula One, as we know it, could cease to exist because they violated Sherman antitrust law. And because Liberty owns Formula One, because how it works with this is slightly complicated, but Formula One is its own entity that owns the commercial rights of the sport, while the FIA is the sporting sanction of the sport. Because because the commercial sanction is under an American company, it is now under the purview of the Sherman Antitrust Act. I say all that mumbo jumbo to say, Jen, Formula One is in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, that it just keeps getting worse for them this year.
Yeah,
it's just one thing after another. But yeah, this could get very ugly.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. Well, here's what I'll say. All of this could have been prevented if they had just given them the spot.
Yep.
If they had just swallowed their pride and say, look, we don't like it, but for the good of Formula One, we're going to give Andretti the spot with Cadillac in 2026, and we're all just going to bite our thumbs and make snide remarks and allow them on the grid. Instead, what they have done is they have openly said, yeah, we don't want to split up this pie when we're making all this money right now.
Right.
We're not going to let you in. We don't care what the FIA says. This team is not coming on the grid. They're going to have to make one hell of a case to the Department of Justice that this is not an antitrust violation, which, oh, by the way, Google just got hit with one of these and they lost. So now they have to decide what they're going to do with them. Google might be forced to sell part of their company. That is how strong the Sherman antitrust law is. This is a law you do not, as a business, want to find yourself on the other side of.
Wasn't the NFL just hit with this too?
Yeah, but there's there's an appeal going on there too. So that one's going to be a little longer before folks see their money. But yeah, they got like a several billion-dollar judgment against them for that. Like, this is not a law you want to play with.
No.
I just don't get it. Formula One is its own worst enemy. It's much like Major League Baseball. The teams that operate in it are their own worst enemy.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. And this is not the news. At least this news broke during the break, and we're not going into the Netherlands talking about this later on this month. And it's going to be a story that will continue into next season with a sport where Christian Horner, or sorry, not Christian Horner, Red Bull, the team we thought was going to run away with it, Jen, they're vulnerable.
Yeah, they're
to the point where I don't know if they're going to hold on to either championship. I know folks are saying that, oh, Max has too far of a gap. I'm not sure. That car is falling off.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that's saving him right now is that McLaren cannot do in-race strategy. That is the only thing that has saved them from losing the Drivers' Championship right now. They figure that out. Remember, we raced like the end of November. So there's plenty of races where Max can still lose this championship.
Yeah.
But only time will tell, and hopefully we'll be able to see the end of that, depending on how long this antitrust case takes with them.
Yeah.
In IndyCar, they also had some news break earlier this week where Agustin Canapino, the Argentinian driver, has mutually decided to part ways from Juncos Hollinger Racing and return to Argentina for the remainder of the 2024 racing season. Canapino, Jen, got himself into some hot water, liking some less than savory tweets on Twitter.
Going the Aaron Rodgers way.
Yeah, tweets that, to be nice, were not kind to a fellow competitor.
Ooh.
And unfortunately, he had to take one race off. He came back, and now they've decided that they're going to go their separate ways. And Jen, it's another situation of that dang social media getting a driver in trouble.
Yeah. I personally feel like professional athletes should just stay off social media, especially during the season, because sometimes you just can't stop yourself. You've got this urge to reply, and you just don't have that filter to stop yourself, and it's going to get you in trouble more times than it's not.
Look at Kyle Larson. That's all I'm going to say. And that technically wasn't social media. That was iRacing. But you say one stupid thing on the internet, or you like one stupid post, it's going to bite you. And a lot of these young drivers.
Yep. And it's going to go viral.
A lot of these young drivers got to learn it. And unfortunately, Canapino did not learn that. And his American Racing Odyssey is going to take a break for a few weeks, or for this season. Hopefully we'll see him back in some capacity next year. IndyCar will be racing once again at Gateway on August 17th. And Alexander Rossi will be back in the 7 after breaking his thumb at Toronto. So one driver out, one driver back in, heading into Gateway as we get ready to wrap up the IndyCar season. And we're going to end tonight with some more news and notes on NASCAR at Richmond coming up this weekend. A big change has come to the rain, or how they will do tire changes with rain. Jen, NASCAR has said we are now hands off when it comes to whether or not you decide to put on the rain tires. When the track is declared wet, however, you will have to go from rain tires to or wet weather to wet weather tires. However, NASCAR will not be in charge of telling the teams when to be on the wet weather, or when they can change wet weather tires. So starting this week, if we do get some rain on Sunday, unfortunately all the rain is coming tonight into tomorrow morning, there will be live pit stops for wet weather tires. And I think this is the right direction to go.
Yes, absolutely. It keeps that competition in there. When you have forced pit stops, there's no competition in that.
Yeah. The teams have asked for it. NASCAR wanted to give it to them. They believe that they've got enough data now on how these tires work that they're going to allow them to do the tire changes themselves. And they're also, the team's going to have an extra wrinkle this weekend with the option tire that makes its debut in NASCAR Point Series racing this weekend at Richmond. They will have a softer tire that they will have an opportunity to put on during the race on Sunday. They will have, I believe, 3 sets. They'll have to use 1 set in qualifying, but they'll be able to carry that over into the race. And it's going to be interesting to see how those tires work. This race is going to be in the evening, which when we did the race in North Wilkesboro, it didn't really do much for the racing. However, as we go and look at the Richmond, Virginia weather for this weekend, the evening temperatures for Sunday, it's going to be about high 70s when the race is going on. So there will still be a decent amount of heat in the track. Will be a high of 86 during the day. There is a brief chance of precipitation around the 3 o'clock hour, but that'll be long before the race actually gets started. But the team's going to have to make that decision. They're going to have to learn that tire quickly. And with the lack of practice time, there's going to be a lot of gambling on whether or not that tire is going to provide the boost that some drivers need to get to the front. And it's going to be interesting to see who's going to be on options, who's going to be on primes, and who does that benefit.
Yeah, hopefully they don't shred like those one tires earlier in the season.
Yeah, I hope it's not Bristol soft. A lot of folks have
that was awful.
Yeah, and a lot of folks have a skewed perception of how that went. That was not the only reason y'all look at that race so fondly is because it was at a very small racetrack. If it was on a bigger track, we would not be talking about it the way we do. But I am excited to see how these tires work. I know there's a lot of people that have been Debbie Downer on the situation, but it's NASCAR Twitter. That's what they do. So
sounds like Brown's Twitter.
I can't do much about it. That's just what they do. But I'm excited to see how these option tires are going to get down. And they did make a rule that you have to change all 4. So you can't do option on one side, prime on the other. It's got to be option for option or prime for primes. If you want to do 2 tires, you got to stay on that same set that you've already had. I think somebody's going to try to save those tires for a late race or a green, white checker finish and go for it.
Yeah. That I could definitely see a few teams doing that.
Yeah, but it will be exciting to see who is going to put those tires on. I hope they work out well. And to be honest, I would like to see these tires eventually get expanded to road courses and tracks as big as 2 miles, which takes into account Michigan. I don't want to see these at Daytona and Talladega. We no. Just, no, don't. But I do want to see these tires get expanded just to give the drivers give the teams extra options and extra strategy options to shake the field up. Because if the tire wear is going to be what it is, because Goodyear is terrified of bringing tires that are too soft because of look at what happened at Bristol and look at what happened at Indy 08. We got to shake it up with something else, and bringing softer tires, multiple tire compounds, maybe bringing a couple of more sets so that teams can be more aggressive with them. It'll be nice to see.
Yeah. It's always a positive when you add something to that allows the teams to strategize more.
Yeah, we want to see them really working up there on the top of the box, and hopefully it'll make some better racing as well. But before we go, we do have one series that is starting their playoffs in NASCAR, and that will be the Truck Series playoffs, and that is going to start this weekend at Richmond. Corey Heim just been on fire over there with 5 wins. Christian Eckes, 3 wins. Nicholas Sanchez with 2. Ty Majeski, Raja Caruth, your 5 automatic bids into the playoffs. Tyler Ankrum, Grant Enfinger, Taylor Gray, Ben Rhodes, Tanner Gray, all getting in on points. And as we get ready to start those playoffs, Jenn, can anybody beat Corey Heim? Because I think this is his year.
Doesn't sound like it. It definitely sounds like it's his year. So somebody's going to have to really push to overtake him. Or
Yes,
he's
they're
going to have to have a terrible bout of luck.
I think the only thing that saves him or that stops him from a complete walk away. And actually, let me back up. This is the next to last race. This is actually the cutoff race before the playoffs. So the playoffs are going to start at the Milwaukee Mile. I'm sorry. But we are getting ready to start at Richmond. That is going to be the cutoff race to decide their regular season champion. Corey Heim's got that going away. Actually, no, sorry. Christian Eckes has got that by 50 points. So Corey Heim's going to have to win, and Christian Eckes is going to have some serious issues, or Eckes is going to win that. But as far as the playoff picture is concerned, Corey Heim, 5 wins. He's got to be your odds-on favorite going into those playoffs at the Milwaukee Mile.
Absolutely.
Daniel Dye, Tanner Gray will be the two drivers trying to really race their way in on points. Stuart Friesen, 16 back. Matt Crafton, Chase Purdy, 43 and 44 points back. They're going to have to try to win to get into the playoffs. Ben Rhodes, Tanner Gray, they are not safe. Grant Enfinger, Tyler Ankrum, they basically just need to start their engines on Saturday, and they will be in the playoffs at 83 and 77 points back. Ben Rhodes, Tanner Gray, they're going to have to sweat a little bit on Saturday night. But that's what makes these cutoff races all the more exciting to see who is going to get in to the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. The run to Phoenix and the run to the championship starts for both series this weekend. So, Jenn, thank you so much for joining me this evening. This has been another great edition of the Extra Mile, whether you've been listening live or listening on the re-air. Thank you so much. Next week, we're going to continue to bring more of our series back online, as we're going to have IndyCar back racing at Gateway. We're talking about Richmond and the run into Michigan as well. The Olympic break is over. NASCAR is back, and we cannot wait to hear those engines fire on Sunday.
Yes.
So that'll be the checkered flag for this edition of the Extra Mile. For Jenn B, I'm Darryl. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you at the next green flag. Good night, everybody.